Hey, this is Alex, and before you get into the course, I know you're super excited, but I just want to show you quickly in this video how to watch the videos on my courses in 1080p or HD. So when you first upload a course to Udemy, the HD option isn't available. I have to reach out to them and tell them to enable it. And once they do, you will find the HD option. You can see right here, if I click on the gear icon, there is no 1080p or HD. But the way to enable it is you have to enable autoplay on the videos. And if we now refresh this page right here with autoplay enabled, you will see that now in the gear icon right here, it says auto 1080p. So again, to watch the videos in 1080p or HD, make sure autoplay is enabled and it will set it to 1080p or HD. So just want to show you that quickly because some people have wondered, where is 1080p? Well, it's hiding under autoplay. All right, if you have any issues with 1080p or autoplay, reach out to me and I will reach out to Udemy. But there you go. Enjoy the course. Let's go blending. All right, my friend, it is time to go on this sculpting adventure in 3D and in Blender. This is going to be a lot of fun. The first thing we need to do, obviously, is download Blender. So let's head on over to blender.org, which is the official website of Blender. And over here, we're going to go ahead and download Blender 2.9. You can see this one right here. However, when you're watching this, it might be Blender 2.95. Heck, it may even be Blender 4.0 at this point because Blender is moving so fast. But that is totally fine because what we'll be covering in this course, you could do it in pretty much any Blender version. So go ahead and download whichever Blender version is here. I'm going to click on Download Blender 2.9. Now, sculpting is a lot of fun because it's kind of like having clay, clay and sculpting the clay, whereas modeling is kind of like quantum mechanics or quantum physics. No, I'm kidding, but sculpting is definitely a much more free-flowing process, and it's a lot of fun, so I cannot wait to dive into this. Over here, I'm going to click Download Blender 2.9. Also, keep in mind that at the top right, you could go to Previous Versions right here. So you could click Previous Versions. This will bring you to all the previous versions. Obviously, I'm going to go ahead and download this one. Also, down here, you have the option for Windows, Mac, or Linux right there. Also, another cool thing, you could download Blender on Steam. And if you do it via Steam, it will actually update itself automatically. It's pretty sweet. All right, so let's go ahead and download this. I'm going to click download. I actually uninstalled Blender from my computer to go ahead and download it for you and show you the whole process of installing it. You're welcome. By the way, you are breathtaking. Blender is now yours to keep forever. And forever is a long time, so that's brilliant. You know, I've been doing Blender for about 12 years now. Time flies, but I've been having a blast with Blender. It's absolutely fun. All right, so right now it is downloading onto the computer. Once it is downloaded, we just got to install it. And to install it, we're just going to click the download right here. And we're just going to click next. Pretend that we read the license agreement and all that and click, yes, I have read it. Sign your No, I'm just kidding. It's completely safe. Click next. And right here, you could download it wherever you want, but I'm just going to leave it at the default and click next and install. And then it's going to install and do all this beautiful work of installing onto our computer so that we could have it forever. If you get a pop-up like this with some kind of warning or whatnot, just click on no. No, I'm just kidding. Don't click no. Click on yes and allow it so that it could finish installing. All right, and then I'll give it a second or two and I'll be right back. All right, and then just click on finish and it will finish. And now that it's installed, just go to your search bar and type in Blender right here. And we could see we got Blender application and we could click it. And we have now just opened Pandora's box of 3D and Blender. There's no going back. It is time to go ahead and sculpt and have a lot of fun. As you can see, the interface is quite overwhelming at first, but don't worry, the next couple of videos, if you're brand new, the next couple of videos will walk you through this. If you are already familiar with Blender, go ahead and skip the intro videos and go to the first sculpt. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now, au revoir, and welcome to the adventure of a lifetime. Now that we've installed and Now that we've downloaded and installed Blender, what do we do, ladies and gentlemen? Nothing. We're done. I'm just kidding. All right, so now we got to check out and figure out this interface because, man, can it be confusing. There's buttons everywhere. What do you click on? And if you don't know how the interface works and where to go, it can be very, very overwhelming. Like I say, it's like being dropped into the middle of a cockpit of an airplane and you don't know which buttons to push. And if you push something, will everything blow up? Well, don't fear Blender. Don't fear pushing buttons. I say go for it. Just push everything you want. However, it can help to know a little bit of the interface and where you are. So let's dissect this a little bit, shall we? If we take it from bigger chunks to smaller chunks, we can see that Blender is composed or comprised of different windows. You can see that we have one really big window right here, which is called the 3D viewport. And we could see that if we click on the top left icon right here, you can see that this window is set to 3D viewport. And the reason it's so big is because it must contain the default cube, which is like Pandora's box right here. No, but in all reality, the reason the 3D viewport is so big is because this is where you'll be doing most of your work. This is where you will be sculpting in this course, where you would be animating, lighting, basically doing almost everything in this viewport, so that is why it's the biggest one. You can see that right here we have a camera. We can left click to select it. We have a cube, again left click to select it, and a lamp right there. We also have a grid floor, and an x-axis, which is dictated by the red line, and a y-axis by the green line, and a bunch of other little widgets here, which we'll take a look at. Brilliant! So that's the 3D viewport, and probably the most used screen in Blender. The next one right here is the timeline. You can see right here, if we click here, it is set to timeline. Whoa, not there, right here. It's set to timeline, and this we probably will not be using since this is a sculpting course. The timeline is used for animating. Basically, you're able to scroll through time. Yes, we are time benders now. Avatar, the last time bender. You could scroll through the time here and basically animate your scenes depending on which frame you're on. So these are basically frames, all these numbers, and frames is basically like a single image or a single shot in your animation. 24 of these frames is 1 second of animation. All right, brilliant. So we got the 3D viewport and the timeline. Next, let's go over here. Right here, we got the properties panel. Now the properties panel is very useful as well. As you can see right here, it's set to properties, which is right, where is it? Right there. We can see we have properties, and basically all of these list different properties or different functionalities for different parts of Blender. You can see that right here we have the render properties, we have the output properties, the scene properties, world properties, etc. So many properties everywhere. And these properties basically allow for you to change different properties for different things, and they will also change depending on what you have selected. You can see right here I have the light selected, so right now I have the ability to go to the light properties and change the light settings. If I select the camera, it now switches to the camera properties, and I could change the settings of the camera. Pretty sweet. And likewise the cube, I could go into the object properties or the mesh data property of the cube and change these properties right here for the cube itself. Pretty sweet. So this is the properties tab or properties window, very useful as well. And then lastly, we have the outliner. As you can see right here, dictated by outliner. This basically outlines everything in your 3D viewport or your 3D scene. We got the light, the cube, and the camera. And you could choose to hide or unhide all of these. And also it's easy because you could search for, let's say you have 100 different objects on here in your 3D scene. It might be hard to find it, but here you could just search for your object, such as right here. If we type in cube, you can see we can find the cube easily and just select it. Brilliant. All right, and then at the very top, we obviously have the file, save, and the top menu headers right here. Now, these windows, you could actually change them around. Yes, let's make it even more intuitive, shall we? Because right now, you can see that we are on the default layout right here. Since we're going to be doing sculpting in this course, we could actually change these manually, or we could also change the layout right here. You can see we have a modeling layout. We have a sculpting layout right here, which is obviously very conducive to sculpting. And as you can see, there is no timeline in the sculpting layout because it's not needed. We just have the 3D viewport, the properties, and the outliner. And we have different layouts here. Now, if we go to the default layout, you could actually change your layout. Yes, you could do it yourself. So let's recreate this sculpting layout right here. Now, to do that, all we have to do is get rid of the timeline right here. So to add or remove a window, if you go to the corner of any window, you can see you get a crosshair right here. And if we go to the crosshair and then left click and drag down, you can see that it will then basically make the bottom window darker. And then still holding the left mouse button, if we go up, you can see that we get an arrow. So we get an arrow to merge the timeline up or to merge the 3D viewport down. So again, let's put and you can see our cursor has changed into little arrows. If we go up, again, it will make the whole screen a timeline. And if we go down, it will make the whole screen a 3D viewport. So let's go down and let go of the left click, and you can see it's now merged it. Pretty sweet. All right, so now we basically have the same layout as the sculpting layout. Now, let's say we wanted to bring that back. Well, quite simple. We could just go to the bottom left or bottom right, any corner, left click and drag up, and you could see it adds in a window. Oh my God, we have twin cubes. It's Inception. We have a 3D viewport within a 3D viewport. Well, obviously right here, this window is set to 3D viewport as well because it basically duplicates what the previous viewport is set to. So here we could just change this to timeline, which is right there. And there we go. We got our timeline back here. Pretty sweet. And you could do that however you want. You could split this in between. You could see right here, if we left click and drag from here to the right, we could split that, and we could change this viewport to, let's just change it to the shader editor, which is a different window. And boom, there we go. We have another window. How sweet is that? So once again, you could either customize your own layout or pick one of the pre-made layouts here. Let's go ahead and merge this back together. I'm going to left click right here. And if we bring our mouse to the left, you can see we have an arrow that way, and bring it to the right, we have an arrow that way. So depending on which one you collapse it with, if we go this way, it will collapse the right one with the left one. If we go this way, it will collapse the left one with the right one. So let's just go this way just to see what happens. And now we have the shader editor as a full screen, and we could just change this back to 3D viewport. Boom! I already feel like we are masters of Blender, only knowing this simple little techniques and knowledge of the interface. Hopefully you feel a little bit better about all this too. All right, so that is the, not the navigation, that is the interface of Blender. Very intimidating at first, but if you break it down, you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 windows and a header, and we could manage and manipulate these windows. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now. Au revoir. All right, now let's take a look at navigating around our 3D scene. Why, you might ask? Well, you know, it's always good practice to move around your 3D scene so that you actually have a 3D view of it and you're not just looking at the same camera or perspective of your scene the whole time. Yes, that would definitely be useful. So to navigate around your 3D scene is quite simple. There are different ways to do it, and I will show you all 3 of these different ways. Now, firstly, I do recommend getting a 3-button mouse. Even if you have a laptop, get a USB mouse that connects to it that has 3 buttons. It will make your life so much easier. Unless you like to make your life hard, then I cannot help you, and God be with you. But seriously, a 3-button mouse will help you so much, and it is so much more useful than a 2-button mouse. All right, let's get right to it. With our 3-button mouse that hopefully you have, If not, pause the video, go to the store and buy one. All right, with the mouse, I'll show you how to do it, by the way, if you do not have a 3-button mouse. So with the mouse, to tumble around your scene is the middle mouse button. If you hold the middle mouse button and move around, you can tumble around your scene just like that. And now it kind of looks like we are a drunk person trying to make sense of the world. But this could take a little bit of getting used to. I do know when I first downloaded Blender and tried tumbling around, I was just going all over, but it is a certain getting used to. But go ahead and practice tumbling around. Again, middle mouse button. Another way to tumble around is right here. You can see we have different, well, actually, let's get to that in just a second. The next one is to pan around. To pan around basically means to move from left to right, up and down. Here, if you hold shift and middle mouse button, you could pan up, down, left, and right, just like this. Pretty sweet. The last one is zooming in and out. And again, with your mouse wheel, scrolling it in or up and down will allow for you to zoom in and out just like that. Brilliant. All right, so again, that's tumbling with middle mouse button, shift middle mouse button to pan, and middle mouse scroll will zoom in and out. Now, how can you do this if you do not have a 3-button mouse? Well, I'm happy to say there is a solution for that. Simply, one of the ways is to go over here. You can see that we have different widgets right here. The first one is this widget with the X, Y, and Z axis. You can see in our 3D viewport, we have 3 different axes. We have the X axis, which is the red one, the Y axis, which is the green one, and the Z axis, which you cannot see, but it is going up and down. Now, if you left click and drag in this circle, you can left click and drag, and it will allow for you to pan, or to, not to pan, to tumble around your scene. To pan, you could go to this hand icon, and you can see it says move the view. If you left click and drag, you could pan left, right, up, and down. And I don't know what just happened. It just snapped all the way away. It just snapped into oblivion. All right, there we go. And then the magnifying glass allows for you to zoom in and out. Brilliant. So there you go. If you did not pause the video and run to the store to grab your 3-button mouse, you're welcome. So again, tumbling, panning, and zooming in and out. Now there is another way, which I do not necessarily recommend because it kind of messes up some other shortcut keys and hotkeys. But if you go to Edit and Preferences, right here under Input, you could see it says Emulate 3-button mouse. If we select this, it will now, with the 2-button mouse, you could emulate a 3-button mouse. Aha, cheating. Yes, cheat code on. Check. All right, now if we hold down Alt and left click, you could see it tumbles around our scene. If we hold Alt Shift left click, it pans around our scene. And if we hold Control Alt Shift left click, you can zoom in and out. Not only does it kind of mess up some of your hotkeys later on, but also you have to hold down a bunch of hotkeys to be able to produce the same result. So again, highly recommend a 3-button mouse. And obviously for sculpting, I'm going to be talking about tablets before we get into it. But there you go. That is 3 different ways to move around your scene. Now let me just go back here. I'm going to deselect Emulate 3-button mouse as I do not want that. And there we go. Now let's take a look at more about navigating around our scene. So right here, you can see that it's kind of, when I rotate around, it's kind of changed the pivot point of where it rotates around. To recenter your pivot point, you could hit the delete key on your numpad, or the period or delete key, and it will refocus on whatever object is selected. So obviously make sure your cube is selected first. And now you can see it will rotate it around that view. Likewise, you could hit the tilde key. Now, what the heck is a tilde key? Exactly. Sounds like some folklore, mysterious creature like a unicorn that doesn't exist. Well, yes, unicorns do exist, and tilde keys exists, it's right under your escape key. So the tilde key is under your escape key. You could hit it and you could select view selected, and that will do the exact same thing that we did with the period or delete key on the numpad, just in case you do not have a numpad. By the way, it brings me to my second point. If you do not have a numpad, for example, on your laptop, get a USB keyboard with a numpad, or shoot, you could even just get a numpad add-on these days. So yes, a numpad is very useful as well. All right, now a couple more things regarding navigation and we'll be done with this video. One of those is with the numpad. Now right here we could see that we are in the user perspective right now. But let's say we want to go into front view of the cube. Well, we could kind of try to rotate it like this, but it's still not completely straight on and dead on front view. So we could hit 1 on the numpad, and you can see that now it's gone to front orthographic. Now what orthographic is basically a kind of view with no perspective. So it basically flattens your 3D scene into a two-dimensional scene. Right now there is no perspective, it's completely flat. If we want to be in front perspective, we could hit 5 on the numpad and you can see it will go to front perspective. And likewise, if we're in this angle right here, right now we're in perspective. If we hit 5 on the numpad, it will go to orthographic. And you can see once again, in orthographic, it basically flattens everything out and there is no perspective. So there is no depth to your scene. All right, so 1 is to go into front view. 3 is to go into the right side. 7 is to go, again, this is on the numpad. 7 is to go to the top view. And there we go. So 1 front, 3 right side, 7 top view. But let's say we want to be very ambitious and crazy and want to go to the back side of the cube. Aha. Well, if you hold down Control and hit 1, it will then go to the back. Control 3 will go to the left or the other side. And Control 7 will go to the bottom of the cube. And again, in any of these views, you could hit 5 to go toggle in and out of perspective or orthographic. All right, and then a couple more things with the numpad to move around. You could hit 4, 6, 8, or 2 to move in increments up, down, left, and right. Pretty sweet. And now we are somewhat upside down in the cube and everything's twisted everywhere. All right, nice. Now another way that we could do this, yes, there are so many different ways. Pretty sweet. Another way we could do this is with this gizmo right here, the X, Y, and Z axis. You could obviously see that when I hit 1 to go into front view and then hit middle mouse button to get out of it, it brings me in front of the Y axis right here. And right here on this turntable, you can see that we have axes. So if I hit these different axes, you can see if I hit the X axis, I will go to the left side or the left orthographic, and you could see that I am along the X-axis right here. And you could do that for the Z and the Y. And you could also do it for the opposite side. So you will see right here, if I hit the X, it will go to the right side of the cube. So again, hitting the X right there, it will go to right orthographic. And if I reset that, like that, if I hit the other side, which is the X as indicated by the red color, it will go to the left side. So just like with 137 and Control 137, you could do the different views using the axes right here. Or left click and drag and tumble like that. All right, sweet. So that is pretty much it. Last thing I want to show you is the camera view. If we hit 0 on the numpad, boom, we go into camera view. And you could do the same thing by hitting this camera icon right here. It will bring you in and out of the camera view. And that is how, ladies and gentlemen, you navigate around your viewport in Blender. So go ahead and practice navigating around your 3D viewport. At first, you might feel like a drunk person trying to navigate and move around here, but then you will get better and better until you're like a jet fighter and you just know how to navigate and move around the 3D viewport very professionally and easily and fluidly. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Ciao for now. Au revoir. All right, now let's see how to manipulate and change objects in Blender. This default cube thinks that it's safe just sitting right there, but it's not, because we're gonna grab it, rotate it, scale it, and manipulate it, and see how to change objects in 3D. Now it's getting interesting, ladies and gentlemen. So to do this, there are different ways to do it. As you can see in Blender, there's many different ways to achieve the same result. However, shortcut keys is one of the best ways. Shortcut keys in Blender are like cheat codes in life or in video games. It just allows for you to do things much easier and more streamlined. So with that, to manipulate an object, first you need to select it. When you left click an object, you could see that it selects the object. And there is an orange contour around the object when it is selected. So let's select the cube, and the first thing we're going to do is see how to move an object. To move an object, we could just hit the G key, and then with the mouse, we can move the mouse and it will move that object. Pretty sweet. Now, if we right click, you can see that it does not confirm the movement of the cube. However, if we grab it and then left click, you can see by left clicking, it will confirm the movement of the cube and then move it to this new position. Pretty sweet. So that is one way to do it, and that is called grabbing or moving the cube. Next one is scaling the cube. To scale the cube, you guessed it, the S key. The S key, if we hit the S key, it will scale the cube. And once again, if we right click, it will not confirm. S and left click, it will confirm. And now we got a ginormous cube. It's the takeover of the cubes, ladies and gentlemen. So that is how you scale a cube or an object in Blender with the S key. The next and final one is rotating an object. To rotate it, yes, it is the R key. And if you hit the R key, you can see you could rotate it. Once again, right click to not confirm, and left click will confirm that rotation. You could also hit R twice and it will tumble rotate. Man, I love tumble rotation. It's so satisfying for some reason. So you could tumble rotate and boom, there we go. Now, depending on which view you're in, let's say we go to front view by hitting 1 on the numpad and then hit R, it will rotate around whichever view you're in. So if you're viewing the cube like this, it will rotate it like that. If you're viewing it like this, it will rotate it like that, etc., etc. Now, another thing I want to mention is that objects have an origin point. Yes, it's the origin point of where these objects are created or where they originate from. They're like life forms almost. It's crazy. So you can see that right here, there's a little orange dot in the middle of the cube if I look deep into the abyss of this cube. And this orange dot is the origin point. Now, the origin point is basically what is being scaled around, rotated around, or moved around. It's based off of this origin point right here. So when we rotate or scale or edit a cube or an object, it does it based on this origin point right there. So that is how you rotate, scale, or move an object. Now, if we hit the N key to bring up this properties or transform panel, you can see that now on the location X, Y, and Z, it has now moved. You can see that the rotation has moved and the scale is different as well. For example, if we hit Alt R will basically clear the rotation. So if we look at the rotation right here and then hit Alt R, you can see it resets it to 0. If we hit Alt G, you can see that it clears the location, and Alt S will clear the scale. And you can see that all of these are set back to a value of 0. And of course, the scale is set to 1 because a value of 0 would mean that there is nothing there and the cube is just an atom and there's nothing. So there we go. That is the default setup of the object. So again, G to grab, R to rotate, S to scale. Likewise, you could also go over here and actually change these numbers manually. You could either left click and drag. For example, this will change the location of the x-axis. So you can see here, this is positive x-axis, negative x-axis. And you could either left click and drag on here, or if we go to the z-axis, for example, and put in a value of 1 and hit enter, you could see that you could input values here manually by just typing them in. How sweet. And same thing with the rotation. You could rotate it along the x-axis. Again, the x-axis being the red axis. You could rotate it along the y-axis being the green one, and the z-axis being the blue one. And again, the blue one, you could see if you hit 1 to go into front view, you could see the axis is right there. This one only shows up in orthographic view. And now let's just hit Alt-R and Alt-G to clear those. So that is another way to manipulate your objects. Again, you could hit G, S, or R, or manually input the numbers right here. Pretty sweet. Another way, and by the way, honestly, I never use this way ever, maybe 1% of the time, but that is enabling the widget. So right here, if we hit the T key, you can see we have this tool shelf right here. Let's go ahead and expand it by going right here until you get the double-sided arrow. There we go. And just left click and drag out to see the names of it. You can see that right now we have the widget selected select box. So anything we do with the left click will select an object. We could change it to move. So now anything we do with the left click will move the object. So let's first, you can see right now if we try to grab the cube, we could select the cube, and when we left click and drag here, we could move it along the z-axis, move it along the y-axis, or move it along the x-axis. Pretty sweet. Now you're probably wondering, what are these little panels right here next to the x, y, and z-axis? Great question. I have no idea. No, I'm just kidding. So these panels actually exclude that particular axis. For example, if we select the X one right here, it will move it on all the axes except the x-axis. This one right here will move it on all of them except the y-axis, and this one will move it on all of them except the z-axis. Now you could do this with shortcut keys. Check this out. Again, right here, if you select the axes, you can move them on axes exactly like that, but you could also do it with shortcut keys. If we hit G like we did before, you could see we could grab the cube and move it. But then if we hit any of the axes, for example, we hit G and then we hit X, it will move it along the x-axis, Y along the y-axis, and Z along the z-axis. Pretty sweet. And hence the reason I say shortcut keys are freaking awesome. And now if we want to exclude an axis, we could hit G. To exclude the z-axis, we could hit Shift-Z, Shift-Y to exclude the y-axis, or Shift-X to exclude the x-axis. And so we could do the exact same thing without this widget manipulator, which honestly I don't really like because sometimes you accidentally click these and move stuff by accident. But let's take a look at the next one anyways. Why not? We have the rotation widget. And once again, right here, we can rotate it along the x-axis, the y-axis, or the z-axis by left clicking and dragging. And there we go. We could do the same exact thing. And by the way, on the top left over here, when you rotate it, you could see how many degrees it's rotating by. And you could see it change right here. But we could do the same thing by hitting R and then Z, Y, or X to rotate it along that particular axis. And then if you want to rotate it a particular certain degree or a certain rotation, first of all, you could see right here on the top left how much it's rotating by, or you could just hit R, X, 45, type 45 on your keyboard, and it will rotate it on the x-axis 45 degrees. Pretty sweet. And then we have the scale manipulator here. And here you could scale it on the z-axis, scale it on the y-axis, or scale it on the x-axis. And just like before, you could exclude it. So scale it on all of them except the z-axis, except the x-axis, etc. Or, yes, shortcut keys, you could hit S, Y, X, or Z, or S, Shift X to exclude that one, Shift Y, or Shift Z to exclude whichever axis you want. Pretty sweet. So honestly, Whichever workflow you like better. Some people like to use this. I don't know many people who actually use the widget manipulator here too much. And then right here we have the transform, which basically is overkill, but it gives you all three of them. It gives you the moving one, the rotation one, and the scaling one. So if you're a really sick person and you just want a bunch of widgets on your screen that you could accidentally click, then by all means turn on this last one, which enables all of them. Again, personal preference, I don't really use this too much unless I specifically need it. I much prefer shortcut keys. Let's hit Alt-R, Alt-G, Alt-S to clear all that. And now we could just hit G, X. By the way, you could move in increments too. You could hit GX2 and you will move it in increments of 2. By the way, these right here, you could see that it's, if I hit 7 to go into top view and hit 2, it will move it over 2 units on the grid floor. So GX2, it will move it over to this square right here because we've moved it 2 units. If we want to move it to right here, we could hit GY3 right there, and it will move it 3 units right there. And these units right here, you could change how they're set up. If we go to the scene properties right here, under units, right now they are set to metric, but you could change them to imperial as well if you'd like. But right now I'm just gonna leave it to metric. And that is how you move objects or manipulate objects in 3D. Now, one last thing, I want to show you how to apply the manipulation of it, because this will be very useful. I'm going to hit Alt-G, Alt-R, and Alt-S to clear that. So you notice when we hit Alt-R, Alt-G, and Alt-S to clear it, it resets it to the default or to how it is right here. So let's go ahead and hit G, move this over here, S to scale it up, and let's hit R, X, and just rotate it. You could rotate, scale it, and move it however you want. Now, when we've moved this cube, rotated it, and scaled it, you can see that all these values have changed. Now, if we want to hit Alt-R, Alt-G, and Alt-S, it will reset it. But if we want to tell Blender that the new location, rotation, and scale of the cube is right here, we could do what's called applying the transformations. And this is very useful, especially when you're doing what's called rigging or adding bones, or in many different instances, applying the transformation is very useful because when Blender, for example, right here, the scale is 1.4. If the scale is not applied and reset to 1, sometimes you could have issues depending on what you're doing in your scene. So it's good to know what applying the scales or transformation does and what it is. So right now, if I hit Control A to bring up the apply transformation menu or the apply menu, we could go ahead and click apply on the scale and watch the scale values right there. They're at 1.4. If I click apply, they will be set to 1 now. And basically it tells Blender that this is now the new default scale of the cube. If I hit Control A and apply the rotation, you can see now it's set to 0. And now this is the new rotation default of the cube. And if I hit Alt-R or Alt-S, you can see it doesn't do anything because this is the new norm of the cube. Now, if I hit Control A and apply the location, you will see that the values of the location are reset, but also something else happens where the origin point, it goes to the center right here. And now the cube will rotate around that origin point, which we don't necessarily want because now it has reset the location. And again, the location and everything is based on the origin point right there. Now to reset the origin point, I'm just going to right click and select Set Origin, Origin to Geometry, and it will reset it there. However, you can see that our values have jumped back up because again, the values of these are based on the origin point. Now, we'll get more into this a little bit later when we check out edit mode and object mode. But again, this is a sculpting course, so I'm just doing a quick rundown of the different things that you may need to know, and we'll look at them more deeply once we actually get to it. But that is basically how you transform and manipulate an object in Blender. If we were to rotate this now and scale it and then hit Alt R and Alt S, you can see it resets it to here because we've now applied the rotation and the scale of that object, and this is the new norm of it. So that is how you move and manipulate objects in Blender. G to grab, R to rotate, S to scale, and then you could hit any of the axes after that, the X, Y, Z axis, after hitting R, S, or G. All right, sweet. We can now manipulate objects and do whatever we want with them. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now. Au revoir. All right, the last thing we're going to take a look at before getting into sculpting and all the sculpting goodness of the course is object and edit mode. Now, what is that? Well, object mode is basically the mode that we have been in this whole time. You can see at the top left, it says object mode, and this allows for us to manipulate and transform objects in themselves, like an object as a whole, basically. We could move it, grab it, rotate it, etc. But what if we want to change the shape of the object? Well, right now we can't because we're doing stuff in object mode. And so what edit mode does, if we go over here, change it from object mode to edit mode, you can see we go into the inner workings of the cube. You could also hit the tab key, by the way, to toggle between edit and object mode. So now we are in the inner workings of the cube and we could actually change the structure of the mesh. Pretty sweet. Now, objects are made up of three different things, or three different parts. This is basically a breakdown and lesson in the anatomy of meshes. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Blender 3D Anatomy 101. All right, so the first part that comprises a mesh are vertices. You can see here I could select these by left-clicking them. I could shift left-click to select multiples, and these little points right here are basically vertices. And you can see right now we're on vertex select mode. By seeing that next to edit mode, you can see right now we're selected to vertex select. Next is edge select mode. If we go to edge select mode, or you could press 1 on your keyboard, not on your numpad, on your main keyboard, 1 on your keyboard to go to vertex select mode, 2 on your keyboard to go to edge select mode. So now I could select edges. And basically an edge needs to have 2 vertices, 1 right there and 1 right there, and then it makes an edge in between the 2 vertices. So basically, edges connect vertices together. And then the last one we got are faces. Faces are basically made up of at least 3 vertices. In this case, there's 4. As you can see, there's 4 vertices and 4 edges, and it makes up a face. And then we could shift left-click multiple faces. Now, why does this matter? Well, it does, because now we can make this into a pyramid instead of just having a default cube. To do that, we could just select the top face right here, hit the S key to scale, and check it out. Now we could actually change the structure of the mesh. And if we hit tab to go back into object mode, now our cube is now a pyramid. A pyramid with a cut off top, I might add, but it is still a pyramid. Pretty sweet. So edit mode allows for you to transform and manipulate the actual structure of the mesh. Now, a couple more things as far as edit mode. You can see that if I left click, I could select any faces, vertices, or edges. Shift left click, I could select multiples. And then down here, you could see it tells you how many vertices you have. There's 8 vertices. Edges, there's 12 edges total, and faces, there's 6 total. And then the number before is how many you have selected. So right now I have 3 selected. If I select 1, it shows 1. Pretty sweet. And then of course, when you go from object mode to edit mode, you can see on the panel here, we have a bunch of different objects or tools that we could use in edit mode. Now, since this is a sculpting course, we're not really going to be using edit mode, but I'll show you a couple useful ones that would be, that might be used further on in the course. So right now we only have so many vertices or faces. However, if we want to add geometry to this, we could do what's called a loop cut. To do a loop cut, we could hit Control R, and this will, you can see when you position your mouse, it will draw in a yellow line of where you're going to cut it. Yes, we are cutting the ancient Egyptian pyramid. So right here, if we left click with the line going there, it will then confirm it. and it will add a loop cut there, but then it's not fully confirmed because then you could decide where on the pyramid you want to position it. So if you want it to be dead in the center, you could just right click and it will leave it dead in the center. If we hit Control R again, we could left click, and then if we want to position it down here, we could just left click once again and it will confirm it down there. So that is loop cuts. You could also hit Control R and check this out. Scroll your mouse wheel up or down, or input a number on your keyboard such as 5, and then add in 5 loop cuts, and then we could just right click to leave those there. And check it out. Sweet. I know, it's exciting. So that is one thing to add more geometry, loop cuts. Another one is called extruding. Now extruding basically extrudes or brings out your geometry. Here, still in face select mode, if we select, for example, we could select, by the way, just like we added in a loop cut, we could also select loop cuts. If we hold Alt, left click, you can see it selects a face loop. Likewise, if we go to vertex select mode with the 1 key, we could Alt left click vertex loops. So we added in vertex loops with Control R, but we could also select them by Alt left clicking or just selecting individual vertices. Let's go back to face select mode by selecting this or hitting 3 on the keyboard, and let's see how to extrude. To extrude, if we select, for example, this top face right here and hit the E key will basically extrude and bring out your geometry. So we could just hit E, and when you hit E to extrude, it brings it out along what's called the normal axis. You can see right now it's locked to the normal Z axis right here. And the normal axis is basically, I don't want to get too complicated, but it's basically the face that is perpendicular to where you're extruding it from. So for example, if we select this face and extrude it, it will extrude it along this way. You can see if we hit E, because it's perpendicular to that face right there. And now we got like a little flag up there. Yay, it's Halo, capture the flag. All right, sweet. So that's another way to add geometry, by hitting the E key to extrude your geometry. And that is basically edit mode. You could also extrude edges. If we go to edge select mode, we could select, for example, this edge, E to extrude. And you can see right here, it is not bringing it along the perpendicular face. So if we want to bring it along there, we could hit the Y key to bring it along the Y axis like that. Also, another thing, if you don't want to move it along the perpendicular face, for example, this, you could just hit E to extrude. And then instead of left clicking when it's extruding, just right click. You think that it's gone, but it's not. It's actually just reset to the beginning right here. And then we could just hit G to grab it, and you could grab it any which way you want, like that. So that is basically object and edit mode. Again, it's just a quick rundown of object and edit mode. Since this is a sculpting course, we won't be getting too much more into it unless we actually need it for the sculpting part of it. But now, after these couple videos, you have a good grasp of Blender and the interface and the basics of Blender and how to use it. So the following videos will be introduction to sculpting, and we will be getting right into it. All right, see you there. Ciao for now. Au revoir. So what is sculpting? Sculpting is awesome. Sculpting is cool. And sculpting is a lot of fun. That basically summarizes sculpting for you right there. No, I'm kidding. Sculpting is basically taking your mesh and shaping, carving, and changing the form of your mesh by using brushes in Blender. And it's a much more free-flowing process than, let's say, modeling. Whereas modeling, you have to worry about the geometry, the vertices, and all of that. In sculpting, you don't have to worry about any of that. It's much more free-flowing. If you could imagine having a lot of clay in front of you and being able to just mold and shape the clay in front of you into whatever shape you want, can you imagine the power that you would have in your hand? And that's basically what sculpting is. It allows for you to mold your meshes into whatever shape you want. It's pretty sweet. And so in this course, we will go through the whole sculpting process from A to Z. We will learn about sculpting, anatomy, retopologizing, texturing, rigging, and animating, and so much more, and you're going to have an absolute blast. You know, ever since I started 3D, I got into sculpting a bit, and I've been hooked ever since. A lot of people, they get into 3D and they don't even think about sculpting, and they're kind of intimidated to try at first maybe. But once you get into it, trust me, you will never be able to get away from it because it is absolutely fun. You get complete creative freedom, and it's a really fun artistic workflow. You don't have to think about the geometry too much, and you get to just free flow with your mesh and create whatever you want. So I know you're going to love this course and the sculpting that's ahead of you. Look out, you're going to be hooked and not be able to stop after, and it will be my fault, but hey, you're welcome. So with that, I will see you in the next video. Ciao for now, au revoir, and enjoy the rest of this course. All right, now before we get into sculpting in Blender, I want to quickly touch upon using a tablet versus using a keyboard and a mouse. Now, people think that if you don't have a tablet that you can't sculpt, that you need a tablet and you just can't do it with a keyboard and mouse. That's completely ridiculous. I mean, for me, what I use is, I use this. It's just a simple 3D projecting holographic table. No, I'm just kidding. Can you imagine? No, I do not have that. I'm going to be using a keyboard and a mouse with this course, just like most of you here. Now, I have also used a tablet, and yes, a tablet can be somewhat easier when sculpting, because with sculpting, it's more of a workflow of using your hand kind of like drawing or painting. So when you have a tablet, you have that same kind of workflow and motion, whereas with a mouse, it's not as elegant or as nice. However, I will be using a keyboard and a mouse just to show you that it absolutely is possible to use a keyboard and mouse. You do not have to get a tablet. However, if you do want to get a tablet to be able to sculpt, it doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. Maybe just an arm, you know, I mean, or a leg. We need our arms for Blender shortcut keys. You could give them a leg. No, I'm just kidding. So let's go to Amazon. And if we go to Amazon and type in drawing tablet, boom, there we go. These right here. No, I'm kidding. Not those. Okay, so if you scroll down a little bit, you can see that we got some tablets starting at only $39 right here. This one right here at $65. Actually, I gave this one away as a giveaway on the website for my birthday. And then we got some other tablets right here. Let me scroll down a little bit more. You can see right now, $40, $70. So it doesn't have to be that expensive. Now, keep in mind that these tablets, there's different styles of tablets. There's some where you can see the screen on your tablet and some where you can't. Obviously, these ones right here, you won't be able to see your Blender workflow on the screen directly, but others such as this one right here, or for example, this one right here, you could actually see, as you can see in the screenshot, you could actually see what's on Blender or what's on your computer will be shown on your tablet. So again, a tablet does not have to be that expensive. They could go into the $3,000 range or whatever. It could be crazy. But if you want a tablet, you could get one as low as $40, which will do the trick as far as sculpting. And if you really get into it, you could upgrade and get something even crazier. You could see this one right here, the different specs of it and everything. And again, this just helps because you have a pen in your hand. You can draw on your sculpt just like you would be drawing with a pen and paper. So it's just really cool. But again, for this course, I will be using my trusty mouse and keyboard, as most of you will as well. So with that, let's get right into it. Again, if you have any questions regarding tablets and mouse and keyboards, feel free to send me a message. I'll be happy to help you. But I'll see you in the next video where we will get into the basics of sculpting. Ciao for now. Au revoir. All right, Blender Maniacs, the time has come. Now let's set up our scene to sculpt. Hopefully you've been able to hold up and wait this whole time, but now we're gonna set it up so that we can then sculpt in the next video. Now for sculpting, it's always nice and good to have reference images. And for this course, the way the sculpting is gonna work is we're gonna start off pretty basic and then go up in level with every sculpt that we do. So here in this one, we are going to sculpt a little cartoonish fish. Yes, we're going to sculpt a fish. It's going to be a lot of fun. And with that, let's load in this sketch reference image that we have. Now, to add things, all you have to do is hit Shift A, and it will bring up the add menu. And here you could see you could add a bunch of different stuff such as geometry, lamps, camera, etc. But we're going to add in an image reference. And in the resources of the course or of this video, you will find a reference image for this sketch of the fish. So go ahead and just download that and load that. It's this one right here. Boom, and there we go. We got a cute little fish. Now, obviously the image is all crooked, which is definitely going to be a little trickier to sculpt. Let's hit Alt-R to clear the rotation of that. Now, what's cool about this image, let's hit RX90 to rotate 90 degrees on the x-axis so that's flipped correctly. I'm going to hit GY and bring it out. What's cool is that we have several different views of the fish. We have the front view, side view, and top view of the fish. So very, very cool. If I hit G and Z, let's bring it up a little bit, and then S to scale it up just a bit. Now, we're going to take advantage of all these different views here by aligning our images in different ways so that we have the front, side, and top view of the fish. To do that, right here, if we hit 1 on the keyboard or on the numpad, you can see that right here, this will be our front view right here. So let's go ahead and place our cube right there in front of the fish. And I'm going to go ahead and scale up the image, or actually let's scale down the cube a bit so that it fits within the fish right there. All right, so that will be the front view. Now for the side view, if we hit 3 to go into side view, we're going to select the, by the way, for the image, make sure that the image is in the cube right there. For the side view, we're going to select the image, Shift D to copy it, right click to leave it in the center, and then hit RZ90 to rotate 90 degrees. And then hitting 3 on the numpad to go into side view, we're going to put the side profile, which is this one right here, right in the middle of the cube. So again, in the middle of the cube, it will be there. So when we hit 1 to go into front view, it's on the front side. 3 to go into side view, it's on the side view of the fish. And then we got one more to do, the top view. We're going to hit 7 to go into top view. And by the way, also for this one, make sure it's in the middle of the cube. So I'm going to hit GX and put it right there in the middle of the cube. They all need to be intersecting. For the top view one, I'm going to hit 7 to go into top view, Shift D, right click, RY90, and then we're going to get the top view one here, which is this right here. Then after hitting RY90, we're going to hit R90 negative in top view so that's facing this way. And we're going to position it right there and hit GZ and bring it in the middle of the cube. Again, so that all of these images are intersecting with one another. Let's hit 7 to go into top view and just position it there. So what we got when we hit 1 to go into front view on the numpad, we got this, 3, we got the side, and 7, we got the top view. And we could adjust that just a tad bit like that. All right, there we go. Sweet, so now we got our scene set up to sculpt. Pretty cool. And we got a bunch of fish everywhere. Fishes, fish, yeah. The plural for fish is fish. Anyways, yeah, thank God this course is not a grammar or English course. Anyways, so with that, we are good to go. 1, 3, and 7. Now we are going to set up our sculpting layout. What we want to do is select our cube. We're going to change it. One way we could go to sculpt mode is change it from object mode to sculpt mode right here. And look at all these brushes here. Ta-da! Beautiful. It's like clay modeling on steroids or something. But what we're going to do, just like we saw before, instead of going to sculpt mode, let's go back to object mode. And we're just going to change the layout to sculpting so that it gets rid of the timeline down there. And now we got our sculpting layout right here. We got all these brushes. Check it out. Let's expand these by going here until we get the double arrow. And look at all these brushes. We got the draw brush. We got the draw sharp brush. We got the crease brush. Oh yeah. So this is going to be a lot of fun. All right, I'm excited. In the next video, we will start to do some sculpting on here. So I will see you there. Ciao for now. Au revoir. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for sculpting. We will name this fish, I don't know. What should we name him? Look at him. Look at him. What kind of name goes with that face? Yeah, I don't know. We'll think of something. But for now, let's go ahead and sculpt this, shall we? Now, for sculpting, there's different ways to go about sculpting. You can use what's called a multi-resolution modifier. You could subdivide your mesh, but the coolest and most intuitive way is using what is called dynamic topology. Now, what this does is, because the way sculpting works is when you sculpt, it's based on how many vertices or how many edges or faces you have in your mesh. Now, obviously, with this cube right here, you can see that we only have 8 vertices. So if I grab the draw brush and try to draw on here, you can see that it's just pulling out that vertex and not really doing much. I'm going to hit Control-Z to undo that. So again, it's not really sculpting much because there's not much to sculpt with. So it's going to be hard to sculpt this guy named, I don't know what he's named. It's going to be hard to sculpt this fish with just a cube because we don't have enough vertices. So what we do is we enable something called dynamic topology. And dynamic topology right here is basically allows for you, right here, it's under the settings right here where there's a wrench and screwdriver icon, you'll find dynamic topology. And if we enable this, just make sure to click OK after. Dynamic topology will basically dynamically add geometry to your mesh depending on where you're sculpting. It's based on the detail size right here, which is 12 pixels right now. So right now, check this out. If we draw on here, and let me go into wireframe mode, by the way. I'm going to hit Z, go into wireframe. If we draw on here, you could see that, boom, all of a sudden, as we're drawing, it's adding in geometry. How sweet is that? And what's beautiful about this is that we could use other ways such as multi-resolution modifier, but that adds geometry to your whole mesh. The beauty about this is if you need a lot of detail here, you could add a lot of geometry, and if you don't need a lot of detail here, you don't need to add a lot of geometry. Because with sculpting or with anything in 3D, the more geometry there is, the longer it will take to process, or the slower your computer will go once you reach, millions of vertices. So it's nice to be able to dictate where there will be detail. Now, right here with the detail size, it's set to 12 pixels right now, and the detailing right here is set to relative detail, meaning it will be relative based on how far you are zoomed in or how far you are zoomed out. For example, right here, you could see it draws in that amount of detail. If we zoom in to here, you could see that the detail is smaller and finer because it's relative. The 12 pixels is going to be relative based on how far zoomed in or out you are. If you're all the way out here, you can see it will be less detail. For now, we might change this later, but for now, I want to change this relative detail to constant detail. And by changing it to constant detail, the detail will be the same and not change. So you can see if I left click here, if I'm zoomed out like that or zoomed in like this, it's the same. Now what we could do is select detail flood fill, which this will fill the whole mesh with this resolution of detail. So let's do that. And you can see that now it's filled the whole mesh with that amount of detail, which is great because we have more vertices. Now, what I want to do is I want to change the resolution here because we don't have enough vertices right now to be able to sculpt with. We want a little bit more. So I'm going to change the resolution here to, let's try 12. And I'm going to put detail flood fill, which again will flood the whole mesh with this amount of detail instead of us having to manually go on here and add in some geometry. We're just going to click detail flood fill and boom, there we go. And that is pretty good. Let's go for the final one. And again, we're going to add more fine detail after. Let's go to 16 and put detail flood fill. And there we go. Now, check it out. If we go to solid, we go to the draw brush. And now if we draw on here, you can see that we have a lot more geometry to mess around with. Sweet. Sweet, sweet, sweet indeed. All right, so now don't worry about the shape of it. We got somewhat of a cube right here. Now what we want to do is let's go ahead and sculpt some of this. So the first thing, I'm going to go into side view, 3 on the numpad. And I want to go over just a couple of quick settings that are very useful. And of course, throughout this course, we will go over most of the settings in sculpting. So again, this is dynamic topology. We got the resolution and we'll go over some of the more of the settings after. So right here, one of the most important settings is obviously your brush size. Right now you can see we're on the draw brush and up here we have radius and we could increase or decrease the radius right here by changing this value. And now you can see we have a really big brush right there. And by the way, if you ever, like right now when I'm moving around, it's kind of not rotating around the cube and the view is kind of messed up. So to recenter your view, you could hit Alt middle mouse button and that will refocus your position of your 3D viewport and layout. So again, Alt middle mouse button will refocus you wherever you click the middle mouse button. All right, so let's go there. Now, like I said, we have the draw brush, and now with this size of radius, you could see that we could increase this quite a bit like that. I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that. Now, shortcut keys, like I said, are a thing, and they're very useful. We can use the shortcut key F, which will increase or decrease the size or the radius of our brush. So just with the F key, we could quickly do that. The next important one is the strength. The strength increases, obviously, the strength or less strength of the brush. For example, right now it's at 0.5, which gives us this. I'm going to hit Control Z. If we increase the strength to 1, it gives us that, and it's a lot stronger, as you could see right there. I'm going to hit Control Z once again. Now I'm going to put this strength back to 0.5, and the shortcut key to change the strength is Shift F. So if we hit Shift F, if we go all the way up, it goes to 1. Shift F all the way down goes to 0. And I'm going to put it back to about 0.5 right here. All right, so Shift F is the shortcut key for the strength. Sweet. Now, the last thing we want to know for now is the plus and minus. The plus will add geometry like that, and the minus will take away geometry like so. Pretty sweet. I'm going to hit Control Z on both of those. Now again, shortcut keys, they will save you so much time. So shortcut key for this, left click to add, Control left click to subtract or go to the opposite one. Likewise, if you're on negative, it will be left click to remove, and if you hold down Control, it will add. So holding down Control will basically flip it. let's leave it on the positive there. And then right here, if you're using a tablet, this will take into account the pressure sensitivity for your stylus or for your pen on your tablet. All right, the last thing I would just want to take a look at is the mirror option right here. The mirror option, as you can see right here, it's being mirrored on the x-axis. If we go into top view by hitting 7 on the numpad, you can see that if I sculpt here, it's mirrored on the x-axis right there. So obviously this is very useful because a fish is symmetrically the same on one side as the other side. Same with humans or animals or things like that. So we don't want to have to sculpt one side and then sculpt the other side. No, we want to be smart about this. So we enable X mirror for the sculpting. Now you could also enable the other axes as well. So now when you sculpt here, it will mirror it on the Y and the Z axis on top of the X axis, which is obviously we don't want a 6 or 4-sided fish. So I'm going to hit Control Z and undo that and just leave it on the X axis like that. All right, sweet. So we are ready to sculpt this a little bit. Let's go ahead, and now that we got it how we want, we will go to side view, 3 on the numpad, and we're going to change our brush right now from draw, and we're going to select the grab brush. Now the grab brush, as the name implies, allows for you to grab your geometry, and we're basically going to quickly outline the fish right here by grabbing the geometry. I'm going to hit the F key to increase the scale, and just very quickly we are going to, in side view, we're going to grab out the profile of the fish right here. So again, you don't have to do the exact same grabs as me. I'm going to increase the size and bring this down. Let's bring this forward. And again, doing a very rough grab and draft of the side view. And check it out, just like that, we are sculpting, ladies and gentlemen. Now the grab brush is really cool. One thing with the grab brush, it does not add any geometry, so it only grabs the existing geometry. Now right here, again, we are just blocking it out. How you want to do sculpting is you first want to block out the bigger parts and then get more and more into the detail. Because let's say you do a lot of detail here, but then you realize you don't like it, well then you have to move it and it completely ruins and destroys all your detail. All right, let's grab right here as well. And we're going to grab this down, grab that down, and we could also hit 7 to go into top view. As you can see right here, the middle part has not been grabbed out, so let's grab that out. Also, another thing we could do is hit Z, go into wireframe so that we could see the outline of our drawing, and then just grab it in top view and bring it so that it conforms to the drawing in top view as well. So just like that. And already we are starting to get the look of the fish a little bit. Now you can see one thing with the drawing, that on this side it aligns with the image, but on this side it does not. And that could be one of two things. It could be because my image is not centered, which it seems to be, because on the eyes right here it's aligning pretty well. So the next thing it would be is the person who drew this didn't draw it completely proportional to the other side. So don't worry if it doesn't align perfectly with one side. Again, the reference images are just used as a general reference. In fact, I'm just going to go to object mode, select that image and hit GX and move it a little bit over so that it aligns a little bit more. Selecting back our mesh, let's go back into sculpt mode. All right, and then for the rest of this, let's hit 3 to go into side view. We're gonna go ahead and just grab these right here. And actually, instead of grabbing this part, I'm just gonna go to the draw brush, and right here, because I want to elongate it a little bit, I'm just gonna draw right here so that it pulls it out. And I'm just going to left click and hold and draw like that, so that now we have something like so. And then I could hit 3 on the numpad, and we could draw this out a little bit more, and then grab the grab brush and then bring it out, because it helps when you draw out the geometry a little bit more. So we'll bring that out there. And of course, right here, it's quite sharp right here. So what we want to do is use the smooth brush. Now the smooth brush is very useful. It allows for you to smooth out your mesh. If we go right here, obviously as the name implies, if we go right here to smooth, you can see that now we could left click and it will smooth out that geometry right there that was really sharp. And you could do the same right here, smooth this out a little bit and smooth the whole thing out just a bit. And there we go. We got one of those goldfish crackers. Beautiful. Now the shortcut key for smooth, so that you don't have to go to the smooth brush all the time, because that would be annoying, is the S key. Now first, let's change the strength of the smooth brush to something else. Let's change it a little bit lower because it's a bit high. Let's change it to 0.4. So now if we're on the draw brush and we're drawing like that, we could then hit the shift key. Did I say the S key before? I meant the shift key. We could hit the shift key and that will automatically switch to the smooth brush by holding down the shift key. And you could see that now you can smooth it out while you draw. So we could just hold down shift and smooth that out. All right, sweet. So there we go. Let's hit 7 to go into top view. I'm going to hit shift to smooth this out a little bit. Maybe get the grab brush, bring it out just a little bit here. And again, we're just getting the general shape and outline of the reference image right now, not really worrying about detail or much of anything else. And again, as you can see right here, there's a lot more space on this side than that side, and that's just because the sketch is drawn a little bit disproportionate. But again, the sketch is used just for reference, and it will serve us well. All right, so there we go. We will end it off right here for this part. We'll continue blocking this out in the next part. Let's go to File, Save As, and save this as, I'm going to save it as Modeling Fish 2. By the way, keep in mind, when you're sculpting stuff, it will usually look terrible in the very beginning, but every brush stroke that you do and every sculpt thing that you do adds detail, and before you know it, it looks awesome. So let's go ahead and continue this in the next video. I'll see you there. Ciao for now. Au revoir. All right, let's go ahead and finish or continue sculpting and blocking out our fish here, because right now he looks like one of those goldfish crackers that you eat, and we don't want to eat this guy. I mean, look at him. Okay, maybe we do want to eat him. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so let's go for it. We're going to block out the tail part here. Now keep in mind that when you reopen Blender, or when you go out of object mode or out of sculpt mode into object mode and back into sculpt mode, that dynamic topology is turned off and you need to re-enable it. So go ahead and click on the little checkbox for dynamic topology and make sure to click OK. All right, so let's continue blocking this out, shall we? Let's do the tail right here. We're going to use the grab brush. Keep in mind that when the grab brush, or with any brush, as you go around your mesh, the brush kind of contours to the mesh. So for example, right here, it's on the side right here, but as we go towards the back, it's going more towards the back of the fish and the tail, which is exactly what you want. You don't want to grab it from over here, but more from over here. So let's grab it from here and left click and drag up and out and just grab it and extrude it like that. Again, we are just blocking out the fish at the moment. And then same thing with the bottom part. Left click, drag this out right here. And boom, there we go. And then we could bring in the center a little bit but we'll fix that in just a second. All right, sweet. So that is the tail blocked out. All right, now let's go to the front and let's fix up the front a little bit. He definitely needs some plastic surgery or something. Now, keep in mind with these reference images, because they are not exactly proportional from front view to side view to top view, that sometimes they won't align exactly properly. But again, these are just used for reference. So here I'm just going to increase the scale of my brush with the F key. And let's just kind of position this based on the outline or the sketch right here. Something like that. Bring these down right here and maybe bring the top or middle part up. You could even hold down Shift and smooth it out. And then right here, he's got a big concave something going on. So just bring this out and hold down Shift and smooth it out. And there we go. All right, now I'd love to see how our fish looks without all these reference images in the way, because right now they're definitely getting in the way. What we're going to do is use collections. We're going to go from sculpt mode up here to object mode. And now we're going to put these reference images into a collection so that we could hide them. Aha, ninja stuff, ninja techniques. Not really, but all right, let's shift select all of these reference images. So we have all of these selected. And you can see that collections right here are basically, they have objects or things in the collection. So a collection basically houses or keeps a bunch of different objects and items within Blender in that collection. Right now we all have them in the same collection. However, with all three of these selected, again being in object mode, we're going to hit the M key to move it. And then we're going to select new collection and we're going to name this images and click OK. And now we have this new collection called images. If we select our fish, go back to sculpt mode, and again, like I said, dynamic topology gets turned off, so make sure to re-enable it. We can now check it out, select the eye on the images collection, and it will hide all of the images. Pretty sweet. So now we could get a good look of how our fish looks. And it looks quite bloated and terrible. So let's fix it a little bit. Without using the reference images, we're just going to grab the draw brush here. And I'm going to just draw here a little bit so that it transitions a little bit smoother. And now I'm going to hold the Shift key to smooth out all of this here. And then right here in the middle, I'm going to draw so that the middle obviously is a little bit higher than the rest, like that. And now we could see that for some reason there is some pinching going on right here, which is very strange because it's not on the other side. Now, this gives us the opportunity. Remember, guys, problems are actually things for opportunities. So this problem gives us an opportunity to check out another cool feature, and that is the symmetrize feature. So if we go right here, if at any time one side of your mesh is different than the other side, or let's say you forgot to enable the X mirror and you sculpted all this on this side. By the way, you don't have to do this. I'm just showing you. You sculpted all this on this side. Well, you forgot to do it on the other side. What do you do now? We could come down here to symmetry, and then down here we have an option called symmetrize. And we could select which direction or which axis to symmetrize or mirror onto the other axis. Right now it's -X to +X. However, we want to mirror it from +X to the -X. So here we're going to select +X to -X and then click symmetrize. And boom, look at that. It basically copies. Whoa, it looks like some kind of mouse. It basically symmetrizes and copies it to the other side. Pretty sweet. Now, obviously, this is not what I want to do. I'm going to hit Control-Z and Control-Z to undo that. I just want to symmetrize the smoothness here to get rid of this. I don't know why that happened, honestly. So I'm going to put +X to -X, symmetrize, and there we go. Now it's exactly the same on both sides. Pretty sweet, eh? Absolutely. All right, let's re-enable the X mirror. Make sure that is on. And let's go ahead and I'm just going to draw right here a little bit, hold down shift and draw right there a little bit and right here and hold down shift. By the way, your fish does not have to look exactly the same as mine. You could make it look, you know, a little bit different, and I definitely encourage that. Now I'm going to go into side view. You can see that when we fixed all that, or when we moved the front, there was some issues here. So I'm just going to, with the draw brush, just draw this out so that it draws out to the bottom there, like that, and in the center as well, right here. I want it drawn out to there as well. So let me hide the reference images, and I'm just going to draw there and kind of smooth it out like that. Make them a nice round kind of fish. All right, there we go. And then maybe a little bit right here as well. Sweet. Okay, so now if we go over here, let's turn back on these reference images. I'm just going to grab it a little bit right here, bring it up. And now you will see one thing, that if we go into front view, that it's definitely not round. It's kind of more like that shape. So let's round this off a little bit more. But also one thing I want to show you is that right now the front view is, if we go into side view, you can see it's aligning perfectly right here. But in the front view, it is not. And the reason for that is because the drawing of the front view is smaller than the drawing of the side view. So what we could do is go into object mode, select the front view drawing, this one right here, and just hit the S key to scale it up, and scale it up so that it fits better with the sculpt right there. So scale it up to about there so that the bottom and the top fit, because we do know that in side view, the bottom and the top are fitting perfectly. So we just need to align the bottom and the top of the drawing like so. And then we could go back, select our fish, go back into sculpt mode. Of course, make sure to re-enable dynamic topology. And now we could go into grab mode and increase the scale. Grab this out to something like that. And of course, we may need to move this front image as well, GX, so that it's better aligned, and then go back into sculpt mode. Guys, check it out. We need a name for this guy. I don't know. We'll name him Guppy. Yeah, brilliant. That's a brilliant name. All right, there we go. It's aligned a little bit better. And if we go to side view, you can see that there as well, except for the nose. He's got a French nose. All right, I'm going to drag that down a little bit. So there we go. That looks a lot better. Let's go into solid mode and turn off the reference images. And I'm just going to hit, let's get the draw brush. I want to transition this a little bit better right here. So I'm just going to draw, click a couple times to draw there, hold down shift, and just click a couple times like that. And then the front as well. Just round it off a little bit better. All right, sweet. Let's make the top fin before. I'm going to also click there a little bit. All right, let's make the top fin, shall we? Let's again make sure that the reference images are somewhat aligned and good. So we are good to go, except for that part right there. I guess I drew it a little bit too much. And pull that out. All right, so for the fin, it's going to be quite simple. Let me just drag this out a little bit first. For the fin, quite simple. What we're going to do is we are going to grab the draw brush and hit the F key to scale it down. And we want to draw 1 point here and 1 point there so that we know where the fin is. So all I'm going to do is with the draw brush, let's go into solid mode. I'm going to, in side view, 3 on the numpad, I'm going to then rotate around. And right here where the drawing meets where that fin starts, I'm going to left click. And let me make my brush a little bit smaller. F, make it smaller. I'm going to left click right in the middle right there a couple times. And then right here on the bottom as well, left click a couple times right here, right in the center. Left click a couple times. So now I know that the top fin right here goes from here to here. So then I could just hit 7 to go into top view, go right here, and then left click. And by the way, dynamic topology, make sure to turn it on. So let me re-click on these so that dynamic topology takes effect. And then left click and drag these. See, even I forget to turn on dynamic topology. I don't know why it turns off every time. It's quite annoying. So then we're just going to left click and drag back and forth to basically draw this top fin here. And now if we go into side view, check it out. Check it out now. Okay, I'm not going to sing. Man, you guys know it's not an Alex Cortobard course or Blender Mania course if there's no singing. Let's grab the grab brush. And now with the grab brush, we could just align these quite nicely like that. And boom, check it out. Tricks and useful techniques. All right, and then just draw it, grab it out and draw it so that it kind of contours nicely around there. Sweet. Let's turn off the reference images. Boom. And look at that, we got a nice top fin there. Now, obviously, these are really stretched. You can see that the geometry of the fish right here is nice. And if I go into wireframe, you can see it's nice. It's a small geometry. But right here where we use the grab brush, it kind of stretched it quite a bit. Again, because the grab brush does not add or change the geometry, it just moves it. So to fix this, we could just go over here because again, you want the geometry to be pretty even throughout the mesh. You don't want really small geometry and then large stretched out geometry because first of all, you don't want it. Second of all, it just looks terrible as far as visually. And third of all, it's just not practical if you're going to sculpt more detail. So there's a lot of wrong with it. But what we could do is, you can see if I go into wireframe, you can see these are pretty stretched right here. But if we go right here and select detail floor filling once again, it will basically put the detail floor filling of 16 all over the whole mesh. So let's click that. And boom, you can see right away it fixes our stretched geometry and adds in a bunch of geometry evenly. Now, obviously, if we go to solid mode, it looks terrible. So what we could do is grab the draw brush. And first of all, let's hit shift, smooth these out a little bit by holding down the shift key like that. And right here as well, hold down the shift key and just smooth those out. And there we go. Actually, we don't even have to draw yet. We'll draw later. Again, we are blocking out our fish. Now it looks even more like one of those goldfish. All right, brilliant. Lastly, let's do the bottom fins right here. To do those, let's turn back on our reference images. To do these, and again, you could see that on the drawing, the top fin matches here on the side view, but in the front view, it doesn't match. And that's fine. Like I said, these drawings might be slightly different at certain angles, so it's not going to match perfectly every time. So what I'm going to do with the fins, I'm going to go based off of the side reference instead of the front reference. So it will look different in front view, but I'm going to go with the side reference. So with that, we're going to do much like we did the top fin. Let's grab the draw brush. I'm going to hit the F key to scale this down. Let's hit Z and go into wireframe. And the fin is going to start about, because again, this is a 2D drawing, so it looks like here, but it could go all the way up to here. So I'm just going to start them about right here. So in solid view, I'm just going to left click, draw a little dot right here, much like we did with the top fin, and left click, draw a little dot right here as well for this part. I'm making it align with these right here. Let's see how it looks in front view. Make sure it's not too far down. So they are right here. Let me increase it a little bit so I could see it in front view. So it's right around there, which is fine. Again, this is a cartoonish fish, so that works out nicely. Then I'm just going to left click and drag out like we did with the top fin. Just drag these out like so. And maybe increase your size of your brush. Drag them out like this. And boom. Then what we could do is grab the grab brush. And yes, once again, we will bring these out and down. And again, with the grab brush, you don't want to grab something and like bring it out like that right away, because it could create a little bit of issues. The grab brush can be a little bit finicky sometimes, but it works good. But again, it can be a little bit finicky. So here, what I want to do is I'm going to go into side view, and I'm basically going to bring this out a little bit, but I'm not going to necessarily trace it exactly on the reference image, because if I do that, if I bring it out to all the way over here, you can see that in front view, the fin is quite big, which I don't want it that big or long. So I'm just going to kind of bring it out to something like here and just give it the same kind of shape that this has. So basically this will go out a little bit more and this will go out a little bit more, and right here it kind of contours and indents like that. Now obviously in front view we got to make sure that these are going out more to the side. So I'm going to hit the F key to increase the size of the brush, and I'm just going to grab these. I'm going to grab this and bring it out like that. Now, one thing you want to make sure with the grab brush too is you want to make sure, like I said, not to grab it, because sometimes if you grab it too much, the geometry goes into itself. So you want to make sure, and what I mean by that, you want to make sure that your geometry still has volume to it. You can see that right here. If I continue grabbing this like that, the bottom will start to go through the top of the mesh a little bit, which you don't want, obviously. You want to keep the volume of your mesh with the volume of the fin. So make sure not to make it too thin is what I'm saying. All right, let's hide the reference images quickly, just so we could see a little bit better. I'm going to hit 7 to go into top view. These are looking like some mean fins. I'm going to just bring this in a little bit, bring that out, and I'm going to kind of give it my own little shape, you know, because, again, reference images are good, but you don't want to rely on them necessarily 100%, especially if it's a cartoonish fish. You know, you could have a little bit of creative freedom as to the shape that you want of it a little bit. Of course, while still keeping good geometry and topology and anatomy and everything. All right, so there we go. Now for here, I'm just going to bring it in a little bit, and there we go. That will be it for the blocking. Once again, with this, I'm going to select detail flood fill, and then hold down Shift, smooth this out, and smooth it out here as well. And for this, I just want it to be a little bit, I actually want these fins to be more like this. I want the middle part to go out more. I think it'll look better. I'm going to smooth that out, smooth that out. So kind of like that. Again, we are just doing the blocking here, so we will continue in the next part with the rest of it. And what I mean by the geometry going in itself, you can see that right here, it almost did. Again, smoothing it could definitely help for it to not go into itself. And there we go. So sweet, we got our little fins for our little guy. Let's save this. File, save as. We're going to save this as fish number 3. And I will see you in the next video. Ciao for now. Au revoir.